sitting here today with a testimony that is worth hearing, and it's quite a moment, to be honest with you. A few days back, one of you guys actually sent me a message. Thank you very much. It goes a long way, all these messages that y'all guys send me here. It was a message about a testimony of someone that we know greatly from television, of a testimony of Brother Tabiso. And it feels funny to say Brother Tabiso.
We're brothers in Christ, man. That's what we are.
And so somebody sent me your video.
The one I posted on Instagram.
On Instagram.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And said, Ricky, you got to check this out. And it was a number that I didn't know. And so mostly I have like people that I know. If this person sends me a message, there must be something.
Yes.
But then this was a number that I'd never seen before. And they're like, hey, I saw the story. Have you seen it? And it's late.
Yeah.
Mama, 9-ish or somewhere there. And immediately when I saw it, I posted about it on Facebook. I posted about it on
Instagram.
On Instagram. The way people were on the story, like after this, they had me just posting that smallest snippet.
Yeah.
I was like, you know what? An interview is the next part. And so I text you. Nice to meet you.
Good to meet you too, Ricky.
How should I address you now?
I'm Tabiso. I'm God's son.
Not Sam. You don't want me to.
Well, I'm also Sam. Half the nation calls me Sam. But my birth name is Tabiso, Kevin Mokgeti. And I personally go by God's son. That's my title. Yes.
I'd like to say thank you to Pastor Bay and Dibuti. I say the husband before the wife for having me over at their studio to record this interview with Brother Tabiso. Recently born again, he was in the dark, and so I'm so glad to have had this time to have a conversation with him, and I hope that there will be more other conversations that we will have future. Thank you very much to Pastor B, as I stated, for having us over at their set. I was making them go up and down to do the sets and everything, so you can contact them if you want to record over at their studio. So check them out. It's Ricky, and I'll see you in the rest of this conversation. Let's go on and do that. So, but don't forget, don't forget, if you want to record something or thing, holler at them and they'll tell you how to go about it. Sam was one of the most influential actors, I would say. You took on this role on Generation, and it was quite I mean, like everybody watched Generation.
Yeah.
I don't know about the new one, and no shades. I don't know about the new one, but that first generation had such an impact. It influenced a lot of people to get into acting,
yes,
as a matter of fact. I mean, like, it's before that period, how long had Generation been running? Do you remember?
All I remember is I used to watch the original Generations with Paul Moroka, Archie, Bovinolia Mashiho, so I grew up also around that 8 o'clock time. And when I became an artist, I told God that I want to be on Generations. And then he told me that the power of life and death lies in the tongue, and I should speak those things that are not as if they are.
And you continued with that?
And I continued with that while I was also sharpening my skills, because I knew it's only a matter of time before God does this for me. So what I then had to do was to be in line with this goal that I wanted. And I waited and worked, and one day I got the chance to audition for Generations.
What year do you remember when? Was that your first role, by the way?
On Generations?
Yeah.
No, I was a model. I loved modeling at first. And then through modeling, my agent, Eloise, at that time, was at G3 Model Agency. She said she's getting a lot of feedback from the directors and the people that are casting to say she mustn't limit me to only modeling. She needs to send me for acting roles. And she's like, can we start you off with ads? Because clearly you're a natural. Let's see how you do in ads. And then I did ads for KFC, Iwisa Jet, and many others. And
but you'll have a favorite, I bet. You had like one ad that you probably did that you were like, I love the way this
how
ad
it turned
came
out.
Yeah.
There's two. The first one was the Lotto one. And when Lotto came out with their sports take wing, when people now could bet on soccer teams and things like that, excuse me, I was cast as a lead in this commercial that was going to launch Lotto Sports Take. And I was working with a director, Ukesh, and then Gesh was reading the script, and then he came to me and he said, as an interview, I'm not feeling the script.
Okay.
Just read this thing and tell me your version of it. I literally went into a corner, I sat down, and as I was reading the script, I started coming with moves and directions, win, draw, lose.
As if
We're all gonna have fun. And I was now creating content. And then I called Gesh, and I'm like, okay, this is what I have. He looked at me and he said, let's shoot. He's like, I don't want to rehearse this. What you've just given me now.
Exactly that.
Give me that. And then he told his camera guys, follow him. Follow him. Whatever Tabiso does, follow him. And I came up with this thing. I remember there's a line that I came up with, which even today when I motivate, I say it. It's the 5 Ps. Proper preparation prevents poor performance. And the last one was, the closing line, my tagline was, win, draw, lose. We're all gonna have fun. And they loved it.
Yeah.
And I loved it, not only because I was acting in it, but because I was part of the creative process. Much love to Gash, actually, for giving me that opportunity and spotting Ukuthi Lentwana Lena is actually got content. And
apart from just playing roles.
Yes. And then my second favorite ad was for KFC. I worked with Jose Domingos.
Were they in order? Like you went for thing, then KFC?
They were not in order, but they were during the same year. Okay. Because what happened is, as soon as Eloise said, okay, stop the modeling, now go into ads.
Yeah.
My talent came alive.
Oh, man.
And the director spotted me. I loved what I was doing more than the modeling. And the KFC one, there's a guy called Jose Domingos. He's now a prolific director. Jose is one of those, he's an actor's actor. And I loved his work before I met him. So I went on auditions for this role at KFC. It was paying good money and good exposure. And I got the role, I got the lead. And on set, I then met Jose. He was playing a landlord, and I was a young man who was moving out of his mother's house and was renting a flat in the CBD for the first time on his own. So it's a small, crappy apartment, like crampy. And the only reason my character took it is because he was looking at this place and thinking, what a dump. And then across the window, he spots a KFC. He then turns around and says, I'll take it. And this guy's like, are you serious? And he's like, no negotiations, I'm taking it. And then the end scene is me sitting on a couch with the KFC behind me, and I'm holding a bucket of KFC. The apartment is small, it's tiny, but the look of joy on my face as I eat this KFC.
You could spot it.
So I was happy with that story because it kind of mimicked what was happening in my life because I was moving out of my parents' house and seeking greener pastures out there.
What year was that? How old were you? That's the most important part.
At that time, I was 21.
Yeah, no, you were at that age.
I was 21.
Wow.
And I could understand the character because I was still living with my parents with my mom, but I had wishes as well, hopes and dreams of making it out of the township and into the suburbs where I want to be.
Yeah.
And so I played that role with a bit of self in it. And I then realized, Jorge, that's the key for me. Whatever role I play, I need to inject a bit of self in it. And that's why I'm careful which roles I do take on.
Because it has to align with that goal that you're trying to go towards.
Yes,
from that.
Something that I personally feel, then I can lend it to the story. That's how it first began for me before I learned other skills of acting. So I loved how it came together. I loved the fact that there were so many people gunning for this ad. But through discipline and hard work and God's grace, I got it. And then shortly after that, I was now working as a puppeteer, which I was not trained for. I was now
puppeteer.
A puppeteer is, puppets.
Okay.
Where the people
like
that
the
make the puppets talk.
one thing. Yes.
I auditioned for a presenting role for a show called Tabang Tabong, a children's program that educates and entertains kids. And they cast me as Kevin, which is my other name, to do crafts and show kids how to do fun things using any material from the house. And they loved my energy so much and said, they threw a puppet at me and say, see what you can do with Tiki.
Did you have to improvise at any point?
Yes, a lot. I come from the school of improv. I think that's also what makes me a
Your talents
director's
stick out
dream.
also.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm a director's dream in a sense that, yes, I will learn the script. Yes, I will know the words, but I leave room for creativity and spontaneous moments. And I'm able to divert and go into the moment and give it the full respect that I also give the written script.
Nice.
So Tabang Tabong trained me also in that, and I got to play.
How did you feel like those like the way you played any of this kind of like early roles that you had? Do you feel like they kind of like leaned into one direction, or it was like you can insert self? Yes. Maybe there was a moment where you just took jobs because okay, they say I fit, I took it.
Yeah.
Or you felt like all the roles that you were playing, they were like in one line.
My agent is God. My agent is God. I've had representation, but the kind of jobs that I have worked on and the roles that I've played, they all were fitting the kind of moment that I was in. For example, Itabang Tabong, I got it after rehab because in my teen stages, I experimented with drugs. I started with cigarettes, then weed, and before I knew it, I was doing hard drugs.
Yeah.
And I was trapped in that cycle for a while until one day, my mom, after coming home, looked at me and said, Tabiso, are you on drugs? I wanted to lie. But there's this voice inside me that said, the truth will set you free. Yeah. No, it literally said that. And not because I had heard it or read it in the Bible. I heard it for the first time in me. And then I told my mom, I go, yes. And then she said, okay. She stood up, cried, called my aunt Osmangele, who's a social worker. And they booked me for an interview at Sanka Horizon. And I went to Sanka with my mom the next day.
Yeah.
It was a very difficult ride because I had disappointed my mom so much. I was full of shame and I was guilty of the lifestyle I was living and the fact that instead of carrying on with my varsity studies, here I am now going into rehab. And it's in that rehab that I met a lady by the name of Kathy Voss, who was the chairperson of Sanka Horizon at that time. Kathy interviewed me, and upon interviewing me, she called my mom in and said, Mrs. Mokheti, your son here can either go two ways. He can become one of the solutions in our country and one of the best people that we have the pleasure to meet, or he can become one of the biggest problems in our country and somebody we would regret ever knowing. And then she turned and looked at me and said, Tabiso, your mom is unemployed, your father's passed away, you clearly cannot afford to be in this institution. But I see something special in you buried underneath all these drugs and struggles. I'm going to give you a free bed. Stay here and apply yourself. If you apply yourself to the program, trust me, you will not only change your life, but you will also impact your mother and your community positively. I never forgot those words. And the fact that we couldn't afford to be there in the first place, I saw my payment to my mom for the pain I've taken her through, and my payment to Kathy Voss for giving me the freedom to be here, is for me to apply myself to the cause, the therapy and the change. And Jesus Christ met me in that rehab center. I met myself in rehab when I met Christ, my Lord and Savior, in that place. I had gone to church before with my mom, but I didn't have a personal relationship with Christ. It's in that center that I discovered one should write their goals down, pray over them, and then each and every day do something that gets you closer to that dream. And now my new dream was I wanted to be on TV. I wanted to work and save my mom because she was depressed after my father passed away.
This is right after
rehab.
After rehab.
After high school.
Generation.
Before Generations. You wouldn't have known me on Generations if the Lord didn't save me. I was not going to be on TV if I didn't meet Jesus Christ in that rehab. I discovered I'm an artist.
Okay, you know why I'm asking you that?
Yes,
because a lot of people think, oh no, these struggles only come once a person becomes popular, they're out there. You had them.
No. I had my struggles in the township. I had my struggles during high school and in varsity. And it's when the chips were down and I was down and out and I was literally a slave to drugs. And I was praying to die because I hated my life. I was poor financially. Mentally, I was stressed. Physically, I was addicted to drugs.
Yeah.
I had lost my hope and I had forgotten who I was.
And you lose drive as well. That's another thing.
I had no drive. My only drive I had was to do drugs the next morning.
Yeah.
But being taken away from my friends that I was drugging with, my community where I felt trapped, and being put in an institution, a Christ institution, where I was not only being helped psychologically, but spiritually as well. You see, the devil attacks our minds. And once he's gotten that, then he can mess with your spirit. So mentally, I was addicted. And now spiritually, I was trapped. And therefore, physically, I couldn't fulfill my God-given purpose.
Oh,
So, yes, sir.
So there's something that just stuck out. So when we saw you looking clean there,
I was from the gutters. When you saw Samuel and I came in looking like I'm literally from overseas.
yeah,
No, bro, I was
English, everything.
that was from God's hand. You see, my parents gave me the privilege of going to good schools. But Kabutleva, in those schools, I started experimenting. Instead of going
you think
home,
you think you can manage it. You think I can just.
I was
do
just
one.
playing. Yes, I thought, hey, man, everybody's doing this thing. Let me try.
Yeah.
But little did I know that I was opening a prison door that would be very hard to close. And I was in a prison of the mind. I was in a prison in my body because all I was living for now was drugs. With all these things God had given me, I was now trapped.
And you just knocked my head. I thought that was like
No.
that was like way after.
No, bro, when I say Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior, I mean
You
it.
mean
I discovered
grounded.
I'm an artist during my rehabilitation, because the Lord said, write down your dreams. What do you want? And I had this dream of being an artist. Even when I would watch movies, I'd watch guys like Morris Chestnut. I would watch guys like Abotini Nondumo and say, I want to be like that. I want to do that. But I didn't know, actually, it wasn't a want, it was a need. The Lord had already planted the gift in me.
In your path.
Yes. And if I hadn't deviated Kadi drugs, I would have done it sooner. But when the Lord had cleaned me of that, that's when my pure dreams came true. Tebs, actually, this is what you want to do. And I wrote those things down, and it became a driving force to stay clean. I came out of rehab with a list of the things I wanted to do. My father was an actor as well, but by this time he had passed away. So I called his close friend Melilian Dube, who's a veteran actress, because she had an agent at that time as well. And I'm like, Melo, look, I just came from rehab. I'm cleaning up my life. I want to help mom out at home. And she's like, you know what, Tabi, go to G3. She's the one that introduced me to G3. She's like, I don't want to be selfish and bring you here.
G3 is what?
G3 is a model agency. She's like, go to G3, test yourself out there first and grow with them, because now I'm focused on other things now, so I can't hold your hand.
Ooh, okay.
And she gave me the numbers. I went to G3, they rejected me. I went home, I cried, and then I asked myself, what is it that they want? I then looked at TV, the kind of people that are getting jobs. I then saw they clean, they've got style, they've got confidence. And then I started working on myself. Physically, mentally, I was already working on myself because of the rehab. But now the Lord helped me by teaching me the power of life and death lies in my tongue, and that I should call those things that are not as if they are. So I would pray. I plugged my vision board next to my door so that when I leave the house, whether to the toilet, kitchen, or out, the first thing I see are my dreams. And that's what will help me to choose what to do as I'm going out or what not to do. And G3 rejected me the first time. I went back to the drawing board. I worked out, got myself a six-pack, got myself looking good. And I went back about 3 months later.
I like the way you just say it, like in passing. You know, I just got myself a six-pack.
Yeah, look, I got good metabolism, right? And I worked. And a few months later, I went back. Eloise was there with Ephraim Malingwana, who at that time was the top model in our country and was doing a lot of ads. And when they saw me, Eloise is like, "Oh, you've got the X Factor. Who are you?" And I smiled because this is the same woman who rejected me a few months ago. But now I had changed my hairstyle. I became very Afrocentric. I basically made myself a Lenny Kravitz lookalike, very rugged, very and chilled. You know, I had confidence now in myself and what I wanted to achieve. She then took me, had Ephraim train me in modeling. I modeled for a few months, and then the feedback started coming. Send Kevin for ads. They sent me for ads. I got all those ads. And then they sent me for other auditions. That's how I got Tabang Tabong. And it's while I was at Tabang Tabong, being a puppeteer and a presenter, that Utsiamo was looking for extras for Generations. Tsiamo was a casting director at Generations at that time. And
it helps having a person like me who needs clarity.
Yes, yes. And I thank Siamo for walking in that day, because what happened is my colleagues were signing their names to be an extra for an episode on Generations. I then sat and I didn't sign. She then came to me and said, hey, why aren't you signing? This is Generations, free money. I said, no, the thing is, I'm going to come to Generations, but as a lead. So I don't want to spoil my chances. She looked at me and she probably thought, this boy is full of himself.
Take your extra money.
She went. A few weeks later, I was at the public phone. There were still public phones at that time. And I was gonna call my girlfriend, actually. And then Siamo walks past, does a double take and stops and says, hey, aren't you the guy that said you want to be a lead on Generations? I said, yes, I will. She said, well, lucky for you, Mr. Lead, we've got auditions. Follow me, come and take a script. I looked at the phone, I looked down, I said, thank you, Jesus, because I knew this was my chance.
Yeah.
I promise you no lies. I called my mother immediately instead of calling my girlfriend. I said, Mom, I'm going to be on Generations. She started screaming, oh my boy, did you get the role? What happened? I was like, no, I'm actually going for the audition. I heard her go, confident. Then I went, got the script. From the moment I held that script, I read it, and I fell in love with the character of Samuel. And I started now cooking him, how I would play him. And I went for the auditions a week later. They had callbacks. I went for the callbacks, and for the first time, I met Sonia Mbele, and beautiful woman, talented woman, everybody's crush, including mine at that time. But now I'm auditioning as her brother, and I said to myself, brother, okay, besides the script, I need to place nuances that show brotherhood.
Yeah. You gotta have that relationship that makes sense.
It makes sense. And because I was so well prepared with the lines and the actions, I now needed to focus on the emotions. I gave it my all, bruh. And by the time they said cut,
this was gonna be like my
first big role, because I had done theater here and there, I had done ads, but now this is prime time.
Yeah.
When they said cut,
all the ads play by
my
that
man,
time.
listen. They call cut. Sonia looks at me and says, oh my God, you are Samuel. She hugs me and she says, I'm going to see you on set. I say, thank you. Thank you, sis. We leave. 2 days later, they call me. Hey, Tabiso, this is Tiamo from Generations. How are you? And then she does a very somber thing. Yeah, I'm sorry, man. I'm like, yeah. Says, yeah, your life is about to change. Congratulations, you are Samuel Kumaro. Oh, yeah.
What was your entry scene, by the way?
My entry scene?
Yeah.
I'll never forget it. That scene had all the superstars. We had Connie Ferguson playing Karabo Moroka. We had Sophie Ndaba. We had Menzi Ngubane, Sonia Mbele, even Anti Villiers. And they were all in Ezweni Communications in one office, because apparently there was this new CEO that was coming called Mr.
You were not a file
Kumzi.
guy. You were not just like a file guy who coming with a...
No. My first scene on Generations, they're all in this office because Mr. Kumzi, a very difficult client, says he wants to see all the heads. And so they're all discussing about this Mr. Kumzi and how they need to impress him. They can't afford to lose this client.
What's the name of the company again?
Ezweni Communications.
Communication, yeah.
So they then call them to say Mr. Kumzi is coming in. They get themselves ready. The ladies fix their dresses. Bongamla fix their tie. And then the door opens. And then I walk in a full suit. My sister Dombi says, Sam! And I'm like, it's Mr. Kumzi to you. And she quits, and everybody's like, okay, I don't get what's happening. I'm like, no, I'm Mr. Kumzi. And then Sonia tells them, no, this is my brother, Samuel Lona. Hey, when I thought you were overseas, what are you doing here? I'm like, hey, I came to surprise you. I just came back from a cruise ship, A, B, and C. And I was introduced to all the main casts on set.
On the same
day. And from that day onwards, I was a part of Generations. My part was supposed to be 3 months trial and another 3 months of shooting. Then Samuel will go away
Can't they write these things?
in advance. But do you know that they ended up changing the script and extending my contract? And instead of 6 months, I ended up lasting 6 years on Generations.
From 6 months.
From 6 months, which is 3 months trial and 3 months contract. Before my 3-month contract was over, I was offered an extended contract, and they did that religiously for 6 years. And
So what is it that might maybe influence them to kind of like change before we get into like your other journey? Like what would influence them to say
we need this guy?
This character fits the storyline so well.
It's exactly that. My character and how I played it was appreciated by the writers, how I brought the character to life. Because you must remember, they write these things, and it's our duty as artists to bring it to life.
It.
Yes. So they loved my interpretation of Samuel. They loved my natural way of delivering these lines. And my colleagues, I got along well with them. They were stars, but I was not intimidated by them because, you see, I belong to a gang of stars. I'm God's son.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't pompous, but at the same time, I wasn't this fake humble. I knew I was destined for this, and I knew I was good at it, and so I gave it my all. Those things also coupled with being able to take good direction. You can be good as an actor, but if you cannot listen to your directors,
it flops.
Yes. So by God's grace and hard work, I had a good feel of all these things. And then the ultimate test, the audience received Samuel well.
So
they loved him. And when they look at the ratings and the comments, they like, we cannot lose this guy. 3 months is not enough. And every year they kept on renewing it.
Did you because coming to think of the whole period of you being in Generation, where were you in scene when Chris
Brown?
Yeah,
I acted with Chris Brown. What you talking about?
You were on the scene.
Well,
how many
remember
scenes
they took, I don't know, I didn't count his scenes, but in one of the scenes, Ajax and Zamani are negotiating a deal between Chris Brown and Ajax, who was a rapper.
Yeah.
And they took him out for lunch, and guess where they brought him?
Tsalanang.
To their favorite barman. And I was serving them. And I met Chris Brown on set. And the cool thing about Chris is that we worked and got along, that when the camera stopped rolling, he invited me that later on he's going to be at Taboo and I must come through. Did I not go to Taboo being invited by Chris Brown?
Anymore.
Listen, now I was VVIP, chilling with Chris Brown. And after work, Rashapadi Koloi, and we went to Taboo to go hang with Chris. And we had a wonderful time. Fun was had.
But fun can come with its struggles.
Yeah, man.
With the lifestyle that comes now with like Generation, all the success, like just being next in set with Chris Brown, it can lift one's shoulders a little bit higher. Or suddenly hang out. Did you feel like that ever happened, or from an honest perspective, do you think like that you came to a point where you're like, hey, I'm becoming too big-headed, or you saw something?
When it was happening, no, I didn't see it. One thing about me, Ricky, is I'm humble.
Yeah.
And that I can say that without thinking twice about it. And I think it's because I come from humble beginnings. I had to struggle for what I have. It wasn't given to me.
You
I
saw
had to
the
fight
lowest.
for it. Yeah, I caught taxis before I could have a car. I spent a lot of time
Going to the studio.
Going to the studio,
Yeah.
dreaming of my dream car with no one thing at all. Because when I started working, the car wasn't the most important thing for me. Buying groceries for my family was important. Buying clothes so that I look presentable, because after my father passed away, we struggled a lot. So I needed to make my family life comfortable. And that was my first mission. Even my first car, when I bought it, my mom had to sit me down and say, boy, you're making good money now. I need you to take care of yourself. You've been taking care of us as a family.
Could see your
car.
hard work. Yeah.
Get a car. Like, live, my son. And but in honesty, when I look back, there's certain things that I took for granted. Like being Libo Chris Brown, being on set every day, making all that money, because I wasn't only getting paid for Generations, I was being booked to MC, I was
appearances and all those things, yeah.
And I took it for granted, Jorge, that's how it is and that's how it will always be. And I could have used my money better in certain instances. I could have saved more, you know. So I became pompous and thinking, Jorge, it will always be like that. I thought God has opened this door and ain't nobody gonna shut it again. And
so that's where the hanger moment.
The hanger moment was there because I've arrived and I'm here. I believe, and what I've seen now is that when you achieve your goal, you don't relax there. You then ask God, what's next? I stopped asking God, what's next? I started making my own moves. I started planning. You see, I got to Generations because I listened to God's plan. And then I aligned my plan with His. But once I was there, after many, many years, then I just became an artist and I forgot to be God's son.
And just in case someone has forgotten, you had been introduced to the gospel earlier.
Yes.
With the whole journey through substance, as we refer to them on YouTube, and all that. So you had been introduced. But do you feel like you were grounded to have that communication with God at that moment when you feel it? Because a lot of people say, no, I was always religious, but then they ignore that they were never grounded by the period when they were thinking. Do you feel like you knew enough to pray? You know, there's people that just know enough to pray. You kind of like the 50 Cent's Many Men type of a song, you know. I know that God is my back because of the Goliath effect of it and all that. Sir. Do you feel like you were grounded by that time when coming out from the substance thing?
You know, very much grounded because my friends whom I had done drugs with were still trapped in those drugs.
But you could lift off.
But I got lifted out. And I knew, Jorge, it was by no part strength of mine. It was what God was doing. And I think that's what kept me humble during that time. And let me show you how God works. While I was at Generations acting, I was approached by SABC to present their gospel show called Before Gospel Time, Gospel Gold.
Oh, yes.
Because I
what was it?
preaching.
SABC 2?
SABC 1. It was on 1.
Oh, okay.
Because on my interviews, I gave credit to God. I spoke freely
so
and
they
openly.
could hear that.
They could hear, good man, this is a man of God. So I was acting Samuel, and now I was presenting with Ustembile Mhlongo, Gospel Gold. Gospel Gold, I had also watched it when I was a kid. Libwesi Party, you know, Holy Cross Choir and stuff. And so the word of God for me was a daily staple. And now I was also presenting it. And once that ended, Gospel Gold, I was called to audition for Gospel Time with Dr. Rebecca Malop because they wanted to introduce it to a younger audience. And I became their go-to guy. So the word of God was in me, and I was living it, and I was making money also through it, and entertainment in terms of being Samuel.
Yeah.
But that for me was also one of the tripping factors. Because
the celebrity side of
everything was happening almost automatically for me. It's almost like it was too easy.
It's too smooth,
man.
yeah.
You know what I mean? And I then forgot, God is not an ATM. God is not just a person that I say, I want to do this, and then he does it. He's God. There was a reason why he was teaching, he was making me have access to those things. And that's because he knew before I knew that I'm going to be his voice independently of script.
Yeah.
I started being invited to churches. I mean, I traveled as far as Swaziland to preach at Pastor Justice's church. Yeah. I would travel with our DJ Dira, and I'd be the preacher. You know,
in that scene, yeah.
Yeah, Dira would be there to DJ, and I'm there to preach. And the Lord was using me like that. And it's when Generations was taken from me. It's when the jobs were taken that I became angry with God. I was his friend until he was not providing for, until these things that it gave me value. I felt valuable. I felt loved. I felt desired. I felt purposeful. Once he took me off screen, I felt good. I'm like, dude, I preach your word. I'm married. I'm living faithfully in my marriage. And yes, I would drink every once in a while, but I wasn't a drunk. I wasn't doing drugs.
Yeah.
I would show up and people would speak to me and with me. ngoNkulunkulu. So I'm like, why are you shaming me? And when the money was not rolling in, ngale ndlela bese ngiyijwayele ngayo, not consciously, I drifted from my God. I was angry with him. And I prayed less and less. I attended less and less church. I became now shameful because hawusema sakuboni. And usually I'd get, hey, when yesterday you killed us with that scene. And now I became ashamed of myself. Instead of looking for more things to do, I hid myself. The enemy lied to me and told me I've lost my value. I've lost my spark. And I then lost my relationship with God. And now the enemy could start speaking to me again. Saying, you see, no, guy.
So basically it's misinterpretation. You went through a phase of misinterpretation where, by misinterpretation, I mean, you were grounded, but then you interpreted your relationship into the physical.
Yes. I thought God is with me only when I'm driving my BMW. Once that was gone, I'm like, Khanti, where are you, God? You know what I mean? I'm like, you promised me I'll never be poor a day in my life. What's happening now? But I wasn't questioning him in a reverence or sitting with God and asking, okay, what do you want me to do now? It was
just give me what I want.
Give me what I want. I'm hungry for it. Come on, I've spent 6 years on Generations. Why am I not doing movies? Why are producers not calling me? Directors know I'm a good actor. I'm like, there's something wrong here. God, it seems like you are wasting my time. Let me try things my way. And the more I tried my way, the more quiet things became.
Did you... I want to ask this question because... did you at that moment when the generation, the big check,
when
the big check went, did you feel like, hey, maybe we shouldn't have
what?
The show
as
got,
a star.
No. And the entire thing got scrapped after the strike.
I wasn't there. I had gone already.
You were no longer there.
I was not part of the Generation 16 that was striking. I was let go maybe 3 months or so before that strike. Or a year, in fact. Yeah, a year.
God prepared you.
Yeah, and I was angry with him. I was angry. I'm like, Kante.
But I took you out so that you can see.
And then a year later, my colleagues, unfortunately were all let go.
Yeah. And everybody was pissed off. We're still pissed off. I don't know what generation. I don't want to lie. No, it's no hard. No. But there was a certain... it was an appointment, you know. Generation was like The Bold and the Beautiful. I didn't never watch The Bold and the Beautiful. I just never understood. My aunties was like, what are y'all sitting there looking at this thing for? But Generation was that thing where we had an appointment. It was like Mubango.
True.
You watch this, you watch this, you watch this, you go to sleep.
Standy.
You know.
You could set your time, 8 o'clock time.
What took you out? Was it life struggles that they saw and then they were like a bit uncomfortable?
There were no life struggles. I was not doing drugs.
Or did you connect that to... Does it lead to the next chapter of you coming...
They let me go because somebody had... there was a new script head writer. And then she had her own vision of where the show needed to go. And then in order to introduce new families like the Mawandes, they needed to let go of some people. And for some ungodly reason, I was one of the people they chose to let go of. And when they let me go, I was actually thinking I'm about to get a promotion because we were working so hard with Sharon. We were even doing about 11, 12 scenes a day. And we are what you call one-take wonders. I loved that moment to prove myself because Sonia had gone on maternity leave and she and Gamla, their love affair, had to stop a bit. So we had to step up as the young couple. And that's when we were getting married, and stuff. And I was thinking, this is going to go on forever, Mos. I'm set for life. And before I knew it, they called me up.
You were writing your own...
In my head, in my mind, like my daughter used to say. So it was a shock and a half for me. And
what scene? How did they get you out?
They said somewhere, because he's always been a chief, right? They said he's going to go to KZN and take over the
I
chiefdom.
remember that scene.
Yeah, with Sharon and Umpendulo. And we had to leave and go to KZN in Mahlabatini, where Samuel would be a chief.
Okay, so when you go to be a chief, they didn't tell you this is your last.
No, they had to call me in 3 months before the last and say, contract negotiation is coming up in 3 months. We just want to give you a heads up that your contract's not going to be renewed. And after 6 years of it being automatic for me, I was like, what the...
How do I go about that one?
And then I said to myself, in fact, I said to Costas Gabriel, I said, no, Costas, it's okay. It means God has bigger things for me.
And when does the spiritual influences now come in, which bring you to
Bungoma.
the other side of Bungoma and stuff?
Okay. So losing generations at that time, a few months later, the Lord calls me. I sit with my ex-wife, who was my wife at that time, and then we're like, you know what? One thing that
Sorry to
always
hear
works.
that.
Thanks, my king. One thing that always works is so if generations is now cut me off, maybe I need to focus on God's things. I then went to ABCB. I had produced a show, written a proposal. I went to Eben Prue Studios. I proposed this show with, hey, here's a show that would fit in One Gospel. It's a Christian magazine show. I'm interviewing people in different walks of life who are Christians and so on and so on. And then he's like, stop. Pulls the file. He's like, read this. I read the file. And it's almost similar to what I'm pitching.
Exactly.
He's like, let's meet each other halfway. You've come here. I do have a show. It's just dingata, and I didn't know what to do with it. You seem to know what to do with it, and you're a face. Let me hire you as a presenter, and we cook this show.
And how far apart was that?
About 6 months after Generations, 6 months of sitting at home. So during that 6 months, I came up with this concept. When I took it to AB, I found that it was in line with something they had, but had not started working on. And it wasn't a what, he showed it to me, because I didn't send him the proposal. I told him, I'd like to see you. When I read these two things, that's on my side. And then I started working. The show was called Refresh, and I was presenting it.
Why do I remember these things, but I don't?
That's because I've always been there.
No, but I think maybe you know, when you do celebrity, when we think of you as celebrity, I might not associate the show directly with you. I'm like,
it's Sam.
Yeah, it's Sam.
But I've done so much. I mean, look, people call me Sam still, but I've been on Seven Delan. I've been on Rhythm City. I've been on...
You can Afrikaans?
Yeah, I praat Afrikaans. Ik praat Afrikaans. It's niet Seven nie, maar ik kan verstaan. So, I did that show.
But you know what I mean when I say to celebrity, like, it's your thing. You know, like when you just don't remember what a person has done. It's like that moment when I have to be reminded that Ice Cube was in the Are We There? Are we? It's like, oh no, it's his thing that you just don't remember what they have done.
Yes.
And so when you say refresh, I'm like,
yeah, one of the first Christian
that?
magazine show. We did that on One Gospel with ABCB. It was wonderful. But guess what happened? And this is where my faith was tested, to answer your question. After 6 months of doing the show, I'm making good money again. I'm not as prime time as I was on Generations, but my fee is good. My family life is now comfortable again. And then from nowhere, One Gospel says, sorry, they can't afford this show anymore. They are ending the contract.
After running it for how long?
Maybe 6 months, I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. But it was a couple of months because my life standard was picking up again. And Refresh was doing great.
And your contract thing was like what, 3 months?
No, it was a year's contract. And then
they just cut it right in the middle.
They cut it in the middle because yes, it's a contract, but there's always loopholes.
Oh yeah.
So they used one of the loopholes and set me down, and they cannot afford the show. It's a great show, but they can't afford it. The Eben Prue is going through problems. One Gospel is going through A, B, and C.
Yeah.
They need to cut costs.
It's sad.
And they did that. Now I'm finding myself at home. And I became angry with God. I'm like, I'm working for you. I'm not even on generations
Even
anymore.
getting ideas that further.
Yes, I'm like, Lord, this doesn't work. And it's in that period of me sitting at home and not working anymore that I started losing faith, not only in God, but in myself.
Yes, sir.
Because now I could not afford the lifestyle that I was used to. Instead of giving money, I was now asking for help. And this was about 2012. Generations let me go in 2011. 2012, I started doing refresh. Yeah, King. And then 2013, while going through these struggles financially, then my mama and my brother passed away in a car accident.
Yes, sir.
My father had already passed away, and by Ubaba passing away, it made me and my brothers and my mom that much more closer. And my wife and I became even more closer. Nabantwana bethu. We became a very close-knit family with umama, Notsepo, Nosihle, and my wife and children. So with mom passing, I know what usually nobody's ever ready for death, right? But also because it was a car accident and mom and Tsepo passed away at the same time. Mom was 55, Tsepo was 26.
It's a lot of weight, yeah.
And now I am financially struggling. And remember, I've drifted from God. Not but I'm not as passionate.
Yeah, yeah.
And I've lost a bit of faith in him because I'm like, how do you let me get fired from Generations, then you don't give me another big gig? How do you let me then sit and create this show and it's great, and then you take it away from me? And then now while I'm sitting here poor, you allow my mom and brother to die.
Yes, sir.
I was not happy with our king.
Yeah, yeah.
I couldn't see his purpose for my life anymore. And it's in that period that I started smoking weed again. I'm sitting at home, I'm stressed. I'm like, what's the point of keeping myself clean? Because that
was the thing that kind of motivated the cleanness, is that.
But now I knew I can't afford to go back to drugs because I knew what it had taken to take me out of it. So I negotiated with myself. And that's one of the worst decisions I could have done, because the same mind that I need in order to come up with these ideas, I was now filling with smoke. Yes. And because, yes, I'm already drifted from God, the enemy now had an open gate to come in and influence me even further. You see, the Bible says we should be sober and vigilant. When I was high, I could not be vigilant. I could not be sober. My thoughts were not good. And because my thoughts were not good, it led me into depression. Exactly. And during that depression, I'm now finding myself, unkosikazi wami started working. Now I'm completely at home alone. And now I'm dependent on my wife. And I had never been, because I started working on it from an early age. And even my biological family was now being assisted by me at that time. Then I've got this beautiful marriage. We live in the suburbs. We've been on top billing. Like, we were living the life. Yeah. And now I couldn't maintain that life.
By the way, top billing was?
No, top billing
You came out on top billing.
No, bro. And they call me.
They call you.
Yeah, we hear you getting married, homie. Let's put you up. I'm like, thank you. Let's do this.
Thanks for recognizing me.
So I wasn't top billing no more. And I had put my value in the cars I was driving, in the holidays I was able to take with my wife, and the lifestyle of the rich and famous. And once that wasn't there, coupled with the depression of losing my parents, my brother, and my self-worth, I went into a deeper downward spiral.
Yes, sir.
And unfortunately, we also started having problems in our marriage. And out of respect for my wife and that, I don't want to go into detail. But what I can tell you is that my reaction to some of those problems caused even more problems. And if my mind was sober and if I was still in Christ, I would have acted differently. But I messed up. And in that messing up, I hated myself even more. And the world also rejected me. And I felt rejected, and I felt that they were justified in rejecting me because I meant nothing anyway. And the enemy had a field day with me. Fast forward a few years, I broke my leg, my left leg. I'm in a public hospital.
This is in the period of 2013.
After 2013. So 2013, I lose my mom and my brother. And then my relationship with my wife becomes strained in 2014. We try and fix it. It seems like it's going okay.
It's a touch and go.
But it's a touch and go. And instead of growing together, we're now growing apart. And
you set your emotions on other things, and
Yeah.
that creates a further drift. Even
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I had also lost my value. I couldn't see myself the way God sees me anymore. And I felt she also doesn't see me in the same way. But a lot of it was also internal. And
the leg, the leg. When did the leg break? Right after
2017, not right after. So in 2017, we were struggling since 2014, my wife and I, in our marriage. And I was struggling even more because I was now a husband who wasn't able to provide.
Right, yeah.
And I felt that. And obviously, as a family unit, we felt it. But me, now, as Ubaba, who's used to providing, it was something else, you know. And that's why I will never put my value in anything else except Christ. And
also, I just want to bring up something also that we take for advantage, we take lightly. Because I'm too ordinary.
I couldn't. I couldn't.
Is that there are certain things at that point you're trying to calculate how am I going to do this more efficiently to how I am normally used to move and so.
Yeah.
And not having that type of an access.
Do you know where I had to go back to using taxis? I remember there's this show that I got. I played Nelson. In order for me to get Nelson, I was home. My wife was working. I'm sitting at home waiting for the kids so that and whatever. I get Obey sends me a script. Says, hey, go audition for this thing. Obey was my agent at that time. And so I look at it, I'm like, yo, this audition is today. Kibula ko drawing, ketola 50 rand. I can't afford an Uber, 50 rand. I can't bother my wife, she's at work. What do I do? I said, Tabs, if you want this job, humble yourself, get in a taxi, my boy. We were living in 4 ways. I had to hustle and ask people. Got into a text. Sam, go ahead. Yes, it's me. Then I would sit like the olden days and I'm reading the script. I'm like, let me forget everyone. I need this job because I need to help my wife and I need to come up. I got there only to discover it's an open audition. Open audition meaning anyone can come. So the line is packed. And guess where I'm having? They're having it at Eben Brew Studios, my other place, former place of work. Now I'm standing with 1,000+ people waiting for my turn. One of the guys sees me, hey, Tabis, is this you? I'm like, yeah, it's me. It's like, you going to audition for this? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, okay, come, man. You don't have to stand in a long line like this. And then we go to the front. They put me in. I audition. By the time I'm in a taxi going back home, I'm being called, yo, dude, listen, you've got the role. I'm like, thank you, Jesus.
It's a last minute.
Yeah.
It's a last minute going, last minute
getting. Taxiing. And at that time, I'm tired, I'm hungry. And the Lord saw, I'm going to lose my boy. And he made them call me immediately and give me the role. I went
to lift your spirit.
Just to lift my spirits, you know. By the time my wife gets home, I'm excited to tell her this thing. I tell the kids we're happy. I did Omen, and then I thought, yeah, now I'm going to be back. And then silence. Back to square one. Fast forward, I break my leg. I'm now in hospital. I'm at Helen Joseph. Shout out to the doctors and nurses at Helen Joseph. Much love and respect. Like, honestly, they saved my leg. I had 2 surgeries. And they said they were going to cut my leg. Yes, I had severed my tibia. My leg was bad. It was shattered. I had to wear the aerial, what's called an X-Fix.
Yeah. Can you want
the aerial, and I had to sleep in one position facing up, wishing I was in a private hospital. But the treatment I got from those doctors and those nurses was amazing. Look at what God does. The Lord then starts me preaching. Now I go in the passage on a wheelchair. I start singing and preaching the word of God. I come out of that place. I'm going home. No, true story. True story, bro. The nurses will attest. I was saying. And then I go back home. Now I'm back to the same situation. I'm home alone, but now I'm broken, literally, physically, mentally, emotionally. And